So welcome everybody. I can't see you all in the meeting, but I'm glad you all are here. Just a quick introduction for myself. I'm JP van Niekerk. I work for Insect Science. I'm one of the technical managers at Insect Science. I represent the Cape regions. There are other guys that I can refer you to for the other regions, but you can feel free to contact me. Today, I'm just going to be talking about the roles of pheromones and semiochemicals in IPM. Just to give you guys a little bit of background why it's important and how we can use it. That's right. For a start, I sort of introduce Insect Science and what we do. So Insect Science is an entomological company. So we use semiochemicals to monitor and control insects. So semiochemicals is broken down into two parts. So one is pheromones. So this is how insects communicate with each other. One that everybody's familiar with is sex pheromones. This is when the female moth will release a pheromone to attract the male moth in order to start mating. Then we have allelochemicals. This is an instance like volatiles that the fruits will give off or the plant will give off. What this does is this indicates to the insect when the fruit or plant is susceptible for damage, and that's how they'll communicate with each other. Just then what Insect Science does, so we have three different departments within Insect Science. The first one is our research and development department, which we're very proud of. So we do all our in-house own registrations through POCs and registration trials. We'll do literature studies of the pest to understand completely the life cycle and where we can intervene with this pest. And we will also use this where we go into the field to do real life registration trials in the sense that we check that we actually control and monitor the pest effectively, as well as controlling the pest and damage of the pest. Then we have manufacturing. So all our products are made proudly here within South Africa. There's lots of benefits for this. Is if there is an issue with our product, we can immediately see or find out what the issue is by going back with our QC checks to see how or what we could have done wrong in order for it not to work in the way that we advised it would work. And then we have our technical team. This team is basically the people that come out onto the farms, work with the agents and the growers to give advice on our products. Every one of our technical people are or did an apprenticeship within R&D work. So we understand our products and how they work and where to use them and how to use them. And then where all these different departments overlap with each other, we call this innovation hubs. A good example is when the technical team sits with the research and development team, we can take the experience and information we get from growers and agents outside and talk to the research and development team in a sense that we can tell them, this is the products that we need to register or work on. These are the pests, and these are the best ways to use these products so that it's an easy and practical way for the growers and agents to use or people that need to use these products. So there's different ways in order to identify attractants for insects. The one is through sampling the female pheromones from a moth or any insect. And this way we get the certain component within the pheromone plume, which attracts the male towards the moth or the female in order to start mating. And the other way is through sampling the volatiles, which the fruit or plant will give off, which makes or lets them know that the plant or fruit is the most susceptible at that stage. We will then use these different components of pheromones or volatiles and blow them over the male's antenna. And this gives us a response to know which components within the pheromone plume is the correct one to use in order to monitor or control said insect or pest which you want to control. So once we've done or gone through our whole research and development thing, the first thing we always do is population monitoring. So monitoring is very, very important. It's the first step in any type of pest control you need to monitor. Once we have that sorted, we got the attraction for monitoring right, we will then move into pest control, either through disruption or through attraction. We have various different products for both. This is just a quick overview to show what different types of measures we use for population control and monitoring. So the role of RPM within IPM. So it is important to know your pest to ensure that you take action at the right time. It's a very flexible and site-specific approach. It's very cost-effective and focuses on controlling the pest at the right time in its life cycle. Instead of waiting when there's damage in the crop, we want to know when is the right time to control the adult moth or fruit fly or any other pests, not when there's damage, but proactively. By doing this, we limit damage to the harmful. Right there. So we reactively control the damage done rather than waiting for damage to be done. We are proactive in limiting the damage by harmful insects instead of taking a more curative measure, which is sometimes more expensive and can also lead to more damage if not done properly. So within process, it's important to make decisions based on the pest identification and monitoring. So knowing your pest, knowing that you're monitoring and identifying the right pest, which in order that you want to control or monitor. And with this way, we can prevent pest infestation, minimize secondary pests, and limit the impact on beneficial insects, residues on food, and increase food security. So the use of chemicals also reduces the likelihood of resistance development, and which is compared to the use of conventional chemicals. So how do pheromones work? So insects communicate with each other by releasing small quantities of pheromones, which act as a scent in the air to attract them to each other. So each pest has a specific pheromone which they give off. So FCM will only attract FCM, fruit fly will only attract fruit fly. And with this, we can use these systems which they have in place. We can use it to our benefit in order to attract the specific pest that we want to monitor. And with that, we can also neutralize or disrupt the normal behavior of the pest with its own pheromones or the way they communicate with each other. So why are pheromone traps important? So monitoring systems are easy tools to use for growers or anybody. It's how we call, I say it's your scout that never sleeps. We have people that go into the field and scout for damage or pests and stuff like that. But your pheromone trap is always in your orchard, always giving you accurate data. So you must make sure you install it correctly to maintain your monitoring system. And where the wrong insects are counted will not be a true reflection of the pest situation in the field. So in many of these systems, the decisions about whether to spray or not rest on very small differences in the numbers of insects trapped or counted in a specific time frame. So a monitoring system that is not operated at its optimum will lead to incorrect pest management decisions. So monitoring helps you indicate the number, the sex, and status of the pest, which helps you keep up to date and enabling you to make important pest management decisions throughout the season or throughout your crop cycle. So when making decisions, let me get comfortable. So by making decisions about which solutions to use and when is sometimes based on the economic threshold values of said pest, depending on what, let's say, association you're involved in, rather than just calendar sprays. Let's say every 1st of September, you always spray. Rather, by monitoring, you can know when to act more effectively. And this is a lot eco-friendly to your program, which can sometimes reduce your costs as well as the impact on the environment when you do it this way. So monitoring traps will also help to see whether the control measures you are putting in place are actually working. What we call it meters weet. If you don't measure your control, how will you know it's actually working? So when using pheromone traps, it's important to use the correct trap and the correct fair lure for the target pest. Not every lure catches every pest. You need to use the right one and the right trap. And correct trap placement is vital for accurate data. For instance, with FCM, carrot moth, and codling moth, you want to place your trap in the top third of the tree for optimum use. And with fruit fly, in instance, you will place your trap at 1.6 or 1.8 meters. And you need to check your traps every 7 days on the same day. So if you check on a Monday, you need to check every Monday. The importance of this is you pick up population trends and dynamics to know when the population is coming up, when it's coming down, when to act. Then this is just an example of FCM in an orchard where it was monitored. There was no control measures. You can see when the population comes up and comes down, where you can act, and you want to be proactive, obviously, in this instance. But with this instance, you can see we had at least 5 generations of FCM within this orchard over the space of over the crop life cycle. So when monitoring, like I said, it's important to use the correct traps and correct lures. For small Lepidoptera species such as false codling moth, carrot moth, codling moth, we'll use the delta trap with the correct lure, with a sticky liner. With 2 tabs lure, you can use the same trap, or if you're doing mass trapping, we'll use the red water trap. When you're looking to monitor larger Lepidoptera species such as bollworm, fall armyworm, and semilooper, a yellow bucket funnel trap with a lure and a diclophos block, or the Vopona strip, is the correct way. And with fruit fly species, Cerathitis and Bactricera, you will use the McPhail trap with a diclophos block. So when monitoring, it's important to understand the population dynamics within your orchard. So lots of places you maybe monitor just one trap over the farm, which is not correct. You want to do 1 on 5, 1 on 10, depending on the guidelines given to you to monitor. This will help you to see basically a heat map, which part of your orchard has got more moths or flies or insects and which ones have less. And you can use this to act accordingly. So you know some places you might need to act more, some places you might need to act less. It's more management per block rather than on a farm as a whole in instances. So what do we want to do basically with pheromones and volatiles is we want to break the mating cycle within the insects. So by doing that, we then reduce the damage within your orchard. So we don't want to wait till they find each other and then cause damage to act. We want to stop them from finding each other completely so that there is no damage within your orchard, which can cause a problem later on. It's much more difficult to control that way. So there's two different insect management techniques when using pheromones. So the first one is damage control, or a curative action, as I like to call it. So it's a shorter program. This is when you see damage, you act. It's not the best because the damage has already been made, and this allows your population to grow quite rapidly by doing it this way. For phytosanitary pests, this is definitely not a feasible option because we know once you find the phytosanitary pest, you could possibly either that block won't be able to be exported or anything like that. And it just causes more problems to your other blocks later on. And then we have population control or preventative action. So this is a constant suppression of population early on in your program. So instead of waiting for the population to grow, you act early in order to suppress the population and thus also suppressing or controlling the damage. And this is the right way to go forward when trying to control phytosanitary pests in your orchards. So just an example, the blue line is the population trend of, let's say, FCM. So if you wait for the population to grow and then you act in a curative action, your population will come down, but you've allowed the population to grow and get out of proportion, where it's even more difficult to control, and now it's going to cost possibly a lot more money. So everything underneath the orange line is potential damage that you could find within your orchard by going with a curative action. When you're going with preventative action, this is starting early before your pest population gets out of control, suppressing the population. This helps. So you can see that then you will have basically less damage within your orchard going with the preventative action. And that's the best way to go forward, acting early in your crop life cycle. I know this is just an example on FCM. Each crop can be different, but it's the example behind it. So within insect science, we have attract and kill technologies such as last call. So last call is a grease formulation. It's got the pheromone and insecticide and stabilizers in. It's UV resistance, waterproof, and releases a constant pheromone for 4 weeks. And each product is species specific. And then we have mass trapping, which is placing 20 to 30 traps out per hectare on orchard in order to suppress the population of the target insect. So just to go into trap all or mating disruption, mass trapping a little bit more. So the main purpose of mass trapping with a semiochemical based product, pheromones or volatiles, is to catch as many of the target insects as possible to reduce the overall numbers. So our RPM approach means that we aim to do this without harming beneficial insects, such as bees and other pollinators. Because it's a species-specific attractant, we will only attract the target pest or insect that you want to. So the pests are lured in large numbers to a high density of traps that contain the attractant as mentioned, and the pests are then either killed with an insecticide or kept there with a device such as the sticky liner, so that they cannot go out, or in the sense of the water trap, there's water there that they land in and they can't get out. So with mass trapping or trap hole, this achieves a measure of protection by removing a sufficient amount or sufficiently high proportion of insects from the population. And mass trapping usually aims to consistently reduce many male insects as possible in order to also significantly reduce the mating and therefore reproduction. As we know, if they don't mate, we don't get damage. So pheromones are usually female-based sex pheromones that only attract the males of their species. And mass trapping can be used in isolation for short and long-term pest management to suppress or eradicate low-density isolated pest populations. But for its full potential, it's best achieved when combination with a program that fits into the grower's broader IPM program. So it's part of your IPM program. It's not your silver bullet, if you think of it that way. And then we have our last call or the grease formulation, the tract and kill. So last call is also species specific. So if I want to control FCM, I'll only put FCM pheromone inside there, but I will not then also control or attract your beneficials such as laceworm or anything else, or your bees. Last call's big bonus is there's no spray drift. So 100% of the product applied stays in your orchard, and there's no risk of residue on adjacent crops. So the benefit of this is if you've got a block here that you're busy harvesting now, and this one's going to harvest in a month from now, you can still apply here without any negative effects of the chemical residues coming over into this block where you're busy harvesting at the moment. It's a ready-to-use formulation that is applied by hand, so there's no tractors involved or any water, stuff like that. As you get the tube, you can apply it. It's rain fast and doesn't need to be reapplied after rainfall, which means even in heavy rains, the drop will not run out or basically dissolve. And it's an additional mode of action to control the pests as part of a resistance management strategy. So it is an insecticide used with a pheromone. So there's a pheromone inside the lascal to attract the male of target pest. And then there's insecticide in there, such as permethrin, which then kills the target pest once it gets in contact with the lascal drop. So, like I said, it requires no mixing. It can be applied as a broad cover of a thing, or you can use it as a hotspot control. It's applied to the non-edible part of the crop, so it's not systemic, so we don't apply it to the fruit. It goes to the inner framework of your tree on I call it a muck. That way you don't get any of the insecticide onto your fruit or plant that you want to harvest. Leave no residues and has no pre-harvest intervals as mentioned. I kept it nice and short and sweet to leave space for questions. This is just our technical team in different areas we work in. You can contact me or email me at any time. I'll leave my number up here that we can, if there's any questions, any specific pest you want to know about, any product that we can help with and how it works, we do come onto the farms to give training and explanations into broader, depending on the different product you might need going forward. Thank you.